major thing is that NNPC has been split into three. Nigerian Petroleum Regulatory Commission, to take care of upstream, midstream, downstream. National Petroleum Assets Management Company, to handle production sharing agreements, while the Nigerian Petroleum Company for full-scale commercial entity of the entire structure. I think so far, workers in the oil industry and the ruling All Progressive Congress yesterday lauded the Senate for the action. After many years, Nigerians expected this to happen. The other one, Ebola. A couple of days ago, Kenyan Air flew in a Nigerian corpse from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and it caused a stir. The Minister of Health called for an investigation. They confirmed that the guy died there but was Ebola-free. But now, it didn't go down well with the authorities in Nigeria, given the fact that Nigeria is taking so much steps to stem Ebola. If you must bring in a corpse from DRC, Democratic Republic, you should notify the authorities. But bottom line is that the Federal Ministry of Health authorities confirmed, set up an investigation, they confirmed the guy to be Ebola-free. They accepted the corpse. But World Health Organization rules say any person who dies of Ebola, you don't even attempt to bring the corpse near his family. In short, the corpse should not even come near his family. Not talk of bringing one into the country from an Ebola-infested area. So I think that's why the authorities are saying they want to sanction Kenyan Air for trying that. If a corpse is coming from Democratic Republic of Congo, you must get clearance before you even fly it into Nigeria. That is the message.
And the reason for that, I mean, as we all got to know 3 years ago when Patrick Sawyer brought in Ebola into Nigeria from Liberia, is that a dead body, that is a person who's died of Ebola, you know, has the corpse, of course, has the virus, are plenty. And that's the reason why, in the course of preparing the body for burial, some other family members contract it, and then on and on.
And even the airline personnel who actually handle the corpse.
When the body dies, the virus transmits faster.
Absolutely. That's the reason why there should be that caution. Let's take a look now at the front page of Daily Trust newspaper. Daily Trust newspaper, below the nameplate, we still have stories, of course, on the oil industry. Kachuku, that's the oil Minister of State for Petroleum. Why there won't be open bidding for refineries? That's on page 3 in greater detail. And NECO releases common entrance examination results. That's on page 6. And of course, the lead story is what we also have read from other papers. Senate passes Petroleum Industry Governance Bill. And then on the front page there, you have photographs of property that have been sealed by EFCC operatives in Kolo Town, in Abuja local government area of Bayelsa State. That's photographed on the front page. And then below that, 3 headlines. Militants storm Lagos school, abduct 6 students. That's on page 4. And secession, not solution to Nigeria's challenges. That's according to Shibajo. Ominiode already discussed that story. Look for Ramadan moon today. That's attributed to the Sultan. Story greater detail on page 3.
All right, on Daily Independent, above the nameplate, OPEC extends cut in output by 9 months to fight oil glut. That's is also on Leadership newspaper. And then the headline story on Independent is NNPC unbundled, new tax regime, more jobs coming. With the rider, long-awaited passage of Petroleum Industry Bill heralds fresh start. Details on page 5. And then, just before the photograph, two courts issue conflicting rulings on detention. Maybe we'll talk on that later. The full details is on page 5. And then just beside the photograph there, again, gunmen abduct 6 students from Lagos school. CP leads team in rescue operation. It's also on page 5. Then below that, NEC orders audit of $1 billion drop in excess crude account. And below the photograph, we have Nigerians have right to discuss national unity, says acting President Oshibajo. And below that, Nigeria is dissoluble, says Angwa Abdullahi. Ikenwachuku Ata Nwodo Anya, the call for true federalism. And that story is on page 4. Omini, can you take us on the issue of the Ifeanyi Ubah's case?
Well, I have not really gone deep into it, but I just pray that it is not a case of 2 concurrent courts giving the same judgment. If not, what played out during the PDP convention era will come up. Because if 2 courts of the same jurisdiction give the same judgment, which one will you obey? Well, it's a court matter, so let's not
Exactly,
go into it before I become sub judice here. But the other one is...
The courts have given their ruling. There are courts of what you call coordinated jurisdiction. That's equal powers.
Yeah.
And the rulings appear to be conflicting. One says, continue to hold him, another says release him. So it's the gravamen of their decisions that will matter. So it's letting out for the lawyers of the beneficiary or otherwise, to proceed to the court of appeal.
Then at a school, Lagos State Model College, Igbonla Ekpe, the abductors wrote to the school. Remember, sometime last year, October 2016, the same school. This time they wrote to the school, and the school raised alarm to the security authorities. Security authorities were alert. The abductors came in, took the principal in charge of the junior secondary arm, took the principal in charge of the senior secondary arm, and 6 students. And when they came into the school, because of their sophistry, the sophisticated weapons they had, they overwhelmed the security operatives and went away with, one of the reports said they went away with 10 students. But when along the way, they interrogated them, when they saw the way the parentage of 4 of the children, they dropped those ones and went with the one with 6. Their names are made detailed, but it's not for now to say. I believe maybe the investigations are on towards that. But the other side of it is somewhere in the southwest yesterday, acting chairman of EFCC, Magu, granted interview to select journalists to say that he will eliminate corruption in Nigeria within 12 months, and that he's going to fight it like there is no tomorrow, and he will follow it to the last minute. And also, Facebook co-founder Mark Zuckerberg, one of the Harvard's most famous dropouts, has finally returned to pick up his degree 12 years after he left Harvard. And he posed in a photograph with his dad, Edward, and Karen, and his mom. And he told the mom that he will always return back to get his degree. He came earlier than Bill Gates. Okay. Bill Gates also dropped out, but came back 50 years after.
50 years after.
All right. That is a very, very heartwarming story. But sometimes I think the greater lesson is lost, because some persons will try to extrapolate and say, oh, look, after all, Bill Gates, got out of school.
So let me drop too.
Let me drop out. But that's not the case. Bill Gates, the co-founder of Microsoft, let him tell us, or if we know, how many dropouts he employs in his management. Right?
That's ingenuity.
Yes, that's because you drop out, but you don't employ dropouts in your organization.
You just left the school, say, let me go and do Facebook full time.
The other point you also raised about the kidnapping at Ekpe, it's becoming too recurrent. The Inspector General of Police has a special squad, and of course, from time to time, they've also picked up the kingpins, the brains behind these kidnappings, and we hope that they get into action very quickly. Then that's the most that we can take in terms of our newspaper review segment this morning.
Thanks so much.
We hope you enjoy your weekend.
Very well.
All right, it's Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We take a short break now. When we return, of course, we'll be dealing with the challenges of Nigeria's democracy in the first instance, as well as matters arising briefly at the moment on the passage of what is now known as the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill.
Call of change, stand up, Nigeria. Change is here and it's going to stay. Change begins with you. Oh yeah, make we go. Go so let the change begin from within. Look at your eye, oh Gerula. Change begins with you and me. Oh, change begins with me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me.
We appreciate the gesture, we appreciate her love, and we know that she cares about the people of Nigeria.
She wants to touch people's life, especially the less privileged, or even people who are sick in the hospital. We remember that they have a wife of the president who is very concerned about human life and humanity in general.
All right, welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Of course, 3 days from now, that's the 29th of May, will mark another Democracy Day for the country, and it will be 18 years since the advent of the Fourth Republic. And on Wednesday and Thursday yesterday, we indeed took on the first two parts of this conversation on dealing with the challenges of Nigeria's democracy. Today we have another set of guests who will be taking a look at these issues,
yes,
including, of course, review some of the suggestions or comments made by the by guests who had appeared on Wednesday and Thursday. Kyria.
All right, now joining us in the studio is Ahmed Golak, former special advisor to the president on political affairs. Good to have you join us on the program, sir.
Thank you, Kira.
Also in the studio with us is Mr. Emmanuel Bello, former commissioner for information, Taraba State. You're welcome.
It's a pleasure. Happy to be here.
All right, and then, of course, last but not the least with us here in the Abuja studios is the familiar face now, Good Morning Nigeria, Ms. Cynthia Mbamalu, that's the program manager, Yaga. Ms. Mbamalu, a pleasure to have you join us on the program.
Thank you.
Okay, now let's begin the conversation, of course, by going to a political veteran, Ahmed Bulak, of course, is from Adamawa State. You've been in politics, you've seen the game of the Fourth Republic, and of course, with some experience, you know, harking back to earlier years. Observers believe that our democracy, we've made some progress, but the democracy that we are practicing remains challenging in several respects. Some attribute it to the habits of political practitioners. Also others complain about the electorate and challenges with the institution and so on and so forth. 18 years down the road, assessing the Fourth Republic, where are we?
Although we are not yet there, but we have made tremendous progress. I want you to cast your mind back to when we secured our independence from the British colonial rulers, 1960. That was the first bite at internal democracy within the country. And just 6 years down the line, we had a military coup. And there was a military regime, and that set back the democratic development. Till again 1979. How many years? When we had a second bite at democratic governance. Just 4 years down the line, we had another military coup. Again, there was a serious dislocation in the political firmament. And from 1983, when we had the second military coup, we did not have another democratic experience till 1999. And from 1999 till date, we had 18 years of uninterrupted democratic rule. Yes, we have our challenges, but this is our first experience of 18 years uninterrupted by the military. And we, the political class, can beat our chest and say, yes, we have meandered and we have reached this position, although we are not yet there, but the democratic development is on course, and we believe that the political class will readjust and continue to readjust themselves to behave in accordance with democratic setup. The Constitution is there to guide us. We gave ourselves a Constitution, and all powers derive from the Constitution. Even if you are a president, your powers are limited by the Constitution. And all we say is that the political class must abide by the rules, must follow the Constitution. We must not do things according to our whims and caprices. The Constitution is there to guide us. All we need to do, if the constitutional provisions are not enough, is to amend. For example, I will suggest that this winner takes all of a team should be downplayed so that people will not be so desperate to get power. We have to give ourselves certain percentages to political parties to be part of the government. That is a fundamental amendment that I will suggest for our democratic development. So far, to me, so good, because at least the political class have been able to put the military in barrack for 18 years.
All right, Alhaji Ahmed Gula, thank you very much. Again, we'll come back to you later on in the course of the conversation. Straight away, I mean, you've made a suggestion as to what needs to be done to correct some of the ills that have also been identified with our democratic governance arrangements. Now, we have another guest who will be joining us from our Lagos Network studios. Let's bring him into the conversation at this time. That's Senator Ganiu Solomon. Senator Ganiu Solomon represented Lagos West Senatorial District in the 7th Senate. Senator Goss, it's our pleasure to have you join us on the program this morning. It does appear that we are having some audio snag with Senator Ganiu Solomon there, but once the audio is restored, of course, we'll get to him to get his own views on all of this.
Let's get to the young lady with us here. How has it fared? Well, let's look at the 18 years of democracy in Nigeria. How has the youth fared in all of that? Because they seem to be at the receiving end based on the fact that perhaps there is no deliberate attempt by any government since 1999 to plan for the youth, to say, okay, 5 years plan for the youths of this country. So what's your take on that?
Well, I think for me, the first question we need to ask is, what is democracy? So what does democracy exist to do? And if we want to start assessing our democracy from 1999 to present date, the question we should ask is, how do citizens feel in this democracy? Because there is no government if citizens can't feel that government responds to their needs. And you'd see an increase in the growth of disillusionment among citizens with the political class, and even with the idea and the concept of democracy itself. Let us look at the elections for one. You would see that successive elections is a drop in percentage of voter turnout, meaning that people do no longer see elections as that process that produce leaders that would serve their interests in government. And that, to me, is a huge challenge of democracy. And as a young person, you talk with other young people, you would see that there's an increasing growth of disillusion amongst young people. So the recent statistics show that the young person, about 70% of young people live below $2 a day. And you see increase in unemployment, even increase in insecurity. These are all trends to show that we have a system that hasn't met the needs of the people. And we have a political class that I feel is a bit disassociated with what is actually the reality on ground. So you no longer see people look at political parties as that platform where there are leaders that would emerge, that would present their needs. Because over time, we have seen government that comes up in power with so many promises, different plans and ideas of a system that would provide so much needs, but we haven't gotten that yet. And I think we need to start questioning or interrogating the whole idea of democracy itself, because perhaps we're not doing it properly. Because if you want to look at our system, the idea is it democracy itself, or is it an autocratic form of democracy? Because it looks like our democracy was sort of like built on colonial structures, and we're trying somehow to rejig the structures to become democratic. But democracy is a process that is learned, is a process that you consciously put in effort to build. It's not something you expect to exist in abstract. It must be real. People must feel that, yes, dividends of democracy has become a reality. But now you don't have that. So how many Nigerians would proudly beat their chest and say, yes, we appreciate and enjoy this democracy? We can hardly get 50% turnout of voter, because during elections, people are even going would rather sell their vote. So we're increasingly seeing the new trend of votes buying. Now that shows us that people no longer see government as people that go there to represent them. So it's rather, if we can get this from them during elections, let's get that from them. So for young people, it's no longer an idea of government is there to meet us, or democracy is about people and government of the people, for the people, by the people. It's more or less like government has become this thing restricted to this political class, and they are growing. There's a lot of disassociation with the realities on ground, because we still have an increasing level of poverty and unemployment, insecurity. You have people who no longer see even the justice system as a system that exists to protect their rights. So the idea of human rights itself, and I don't know, there are just things that exist in the Constitution, but are people's rights really protected? Can you boldly say that the average Nigerian can beat his or her chest and say, yes, my rights are being protected, and I have a government and I have a system that would meet my needs when I have my needs?
Mr. Manuel Bello, thank you very much there for that submission. Mr. Manuel Bello, you were a former commissioner. It means that you have been in a position of authority during a political, during in a democracy. Right, and you have garnered experience, over the years. Now, considering the 18 years that we're looking back at, when Nigeria has practiced democracy, what's your take?
Well, thank you. I think for me, I would digress just a bit from what my friend here, is putting out there, which is the fact that yes, we have a democracy that is fraught with all sort of crisis, but we have to go beyond even just our history and beyond some of the challenges and look at what we are doing to deepen some of the institutions of democracy, what we are doing to enhance them, what we are doing to make them stronger and actually placed in a position where it can actually affect the common man, where democracy, because if you look at it, democracy is actually the best form of government. I don't know of any other. And with all its warts and all its mistakes and all its troubles, democracy is just the best form of government for now that can actually affect the common man and touch the lives of people. Of course, you can talk about problems, but I like keeping things real, and I want us to keep some of this thing real. Some of the democracies that we benchmark ourselves against are very, very big democracies. They are democracies that have come over the years, that have actually developed their institution. What we should be worried about out here is what have we done to strengthen the institutions of democracy, and this is very key to any discussion or any form of discussion we're going to have about democracy, and of course the challenges faced by the democracy. What have we done to strengthen the judiciary? The judiciary, when it's strengthened, can actually provide justice for the common man. What have we done about the legislative arm? What have we done about a very key segment of democracy, free press? That's very important. So I think our discussion should center around the challenges of democracy. Does it have a problem? Yes, it has a problem. But if you look at it very well, that's the best form of government that actually can get to the common man and get to the root of, because you have a situation where, giving all its attributes, giving all its challenges, giving all its trouble, elections are still the best way of getting, the kind of people that should represent you and should lead you. Of course, it's getting better. A strong institution of democracy is, of course, the electoral process. It's getting better by the day. Of course, voters are losing some faith in it, but the institution that is saddled with the responsibility of conducting election is doing everything to ensure that we have better elections. And I can assure you that the elections are only going to get better. We saw that in the last general election. I think elections are going to get better. I think people are beginning to understand that they've got the power. The power is in their hand. The voters' can in their hand is no longer for sale. And that's why I think a lot of people are ready to effect the changes through a democratic process. Elections are getting better. We need to deepen the institutions of democracy, like the judiciary, the legislative, and of course a free press, because all this put together will ensure that we have a democracy. But I think we must keep it real. When people lampoon our democracy and say that, well, it's not, achieving what it should achieve, we should, like Honorable Gulak pointed out, we just had an 18 years unbroken experience. In some other climes, they've had close to 100 or even more than 100 years or so. We're deepening this. We're getting it better. To get discouraged now, I think that, look, other forms of government are probably going to touch us better. We need to keep it real and know that, look, as we deepen the institutions, as we strengthen the institutions of democracy, democracy will ultimately be the best system of government that can really touch the common man, especially the electoral process, as it gets better and people know that it is up to them to either remove the leaders they don't want, to actually bring about the leaders they want. As we strengthen that process, I think people will realize that democracy is the best form of government so far.
All right, Emmanuel Bello, thank you very much again. We'll come back to you later on in the course of the conversation. We understand that the audio has been restored to our Lagos Network studios, from where we are being joined by Senator Ganiel Solomon, who represented Lagos West Senatorial District in the 7th Senate. Senator Goss, if you can hear me clearly now, Right here with us in the studios, we have, of course, you know him, Ahmed Gulak. He was a Speaker of the Adamawa House of Assembly and former Special Advisor on Political Affairs to the President. He says, from a historical perspective, the Fourth Republic has done quite well, 18 unbroken years. But some others, including Cynthia right here with us in the studios, argue that, yes, it's not just in terms of numbers, not how far, but how well. What is your assessment of Nigeria's democracy 18 years on?
Thank you very much. The record of the 18 years unbroken record, I think, is highly commendable. This will be the first time we are having such a stretch, and we should commend that. I think is a record worth celebrating. However, we may have our ups and downs. We may have, we may believe that we are not yet where we're supposed to be, but we are taking steps that will ultimately place us in the right direction. And talking about democracy, really, it is about constitutionalism. It is about where are we? It is about rule of law. The components of constitutionalism is about rule of law, periodic election, separation of powers, freedom of speech, freedom of association. How far have we gone in these regards? I think we have a situation that we can conveniently say that where we are now is better than the opposite of democracy. Some people are tempted to say that we are not done enough. Like they say, yes, Rome is not built in a day. And where are we now? Given where we are, given the response of the electorates themselves, because with each election, there's an improvement in the attitude of the electorate. Now they ask questions. You cannot compare the 2015 election to 1999 election, 1998-1999 election. You cannot compare 2003 election to 1999-1998 election. There's improvement, and that is why in some states you can see the gaps closing up instead of widening, which means the traditional pattern of voting changes with the perception of the electorate. Maybe now they start to ask questions. Well, you can't just come back to us and expect us to return you. What have you done while we gave you the previous mandate for you to represent us? Now, that to me is an improvement, and it is a product of the unbroken 18 years. And if we continue this way, I think we will improve, we will get better, and like they say, it will be the case of the old one getting better with every passing year.
Right, thank you very much. We are remaining with you, Senator. You were once a senator, and you got there through a process and through a platform called political party. Now, what should be done to make Nigerian political parties be supreme and have strong ideologies to deepen democracy? We are still talking about parties imposing candidates on the people. We are still talking about rigging elections, lack of internal democracy among the political parties in Nigeria. Yes, as Cynthia said, really, yes, you said we have advanced, but according to her, we're not feeling that impact. We're not feeling, it's not impacting on Nigerians. Well, we've done 8 years, and you said we have gained certain aspects of that, but Nigerians are disillusioned, actually, based on the records that we have. Nigerians are disillusioned. So what can be done for our political parties to be built based on ideologies?
The constitution that we practice, there is no specific power. What I mean is, with the presidential system of government, the supremacy of the party is not all that entrenched, unlike the parliamentary system of government. When the party is supreme, the leadership of the party automatically becomes the prime minister. It's not the same thing in the presidential system of government. And that is also why you can see people moving from one party to another, because they are not all that ideologically based. I mean, maybe we can say some is a little bit to the right and a little bit to the left, with apology to our former chairman of INEC. But they are not, strictly speaking, you cannot compartmentalize them into lefties, righties, and so on and so forth. But talking about internal democracy, at the end of the day, the electorates hold the supreme power to say this is the person we want. This is the party. Okay, the Supreme Court also says that anytime you vote, you are voting for political parties. So it's now left for the electorate to say, okay, yes, we've watched the system adopted by a party, a certain political party, and we don't believe they've done the right thing. And we want to exercise our right in voting the person we believe emerged through the process that we also agreed on. And so we want to vote this particular candidate because the process is all right. By the time we now see the electorates, we see the general public showing interest in the process, I think that will bring us nearer to the perfection that we are we are seeking. That is my belief.
Senator Ghanaian Solomon, we'll come back to you later on in the course of the conversation. Now, to come back to our Abuja studios, Alhaji Ahmed Gulak, one point, again, we can always return to the question of internal democracy in political parties, as well as parties, as platforms, and so on and so forth. One of the issues that we'd like you to address is one also raised by Cynthia, namely citizen disillusionment with the political class of the Fourth Republic on account of the fact that the ends of democracy are not being met rapidly and in sufficient quantity.
Well, right there, I entirely agree with the school of thought that the political class has not done enough to address the challenges negatively affecting the electorates. And that is why there is an emerging class of the civil society that is trying to checkmate the political class. You will agree with me, the recent happenings in our political firmament. You know, members of the National Assembly cannot go to their constituencies because if they go, they will be chased away. Governors are being, booed at rallies or gatherings. This is venting anger on the political class. You have been mandated to address my problem, and it doesn't seem that you are even aware that I have these problems. Excellencies, what is excellent about a governor that cannot pay salary, for example? What is excellent about him? So the emerging, class that is trying to checkmate the political class is a very good development. In the near future, you go to your constituency, you are not allowed to enter your town. Your people chase you away. When you come to Abuja, you will have a rethink. What has gone wrong? You sit down and begin to ask yourself questions. As a governor, you go to gather, people boo you, throw stones at you. Say, look, what is excellent about you? 6 months, 7 months, you can't pay salaries. And you move with convoys. You are always in Abuja. Instead of staying in your state, you are in China. If they ask you, you are trying to attract direct foreign investment. And throughout 4 years, no investment comes to your state. And some people believe that unless and until they are in the lead, nobody gets anything. You sit in the comfort zone of your sitting room and pencil down a councillor in the local government who stands election, and pencil down a chairman who stands the position for House of Assembly, House of Reps, Senate, without reciprocal, activities justifying why you are a leader. This democratic experience, the political parties must be given back to the people. Let the people elect those that they want to lead them, not you imposing people. There are a lot of cases in point. Look at Senator Ghanaian Solomon. Look at Senator Momora. Several senators, their contributions in the 5th, 6th Republic. Senate. 6th, 7th Senate. Look at their contributions. Very apt. But what happened? They were replaced. And I'm sure it was not their wish.
Okay, now.
Sorry to mention names, but the fact is, let the political class give back the rights to the electors, both within the party and the general elections, to elect those they want to represent them.
Now, I think Nigerians will be happy for the fact that this is coming from you, who has been in the scene for quite some time, and who has also worked at the higher echelon, of society. Now, some guests on Good Morning Nigeria, Kinsley, you recall, some days ago, talked about attitudinal change as a prerequisite, for good practice of democracy. Now, let's look at this conversation from the angle of behavioral pattern of Nigerians generally, both the leadership and the followership and what have you.
Yeah, and the context, Kieran, by the way, the context for that suggestion was the fact that, look, what is happening is that our institutions are not being strengthened on account of the attitude or disposition of the partisan political practitioners. So how then do we alter that? The ends of democracy are also not being fully met, again, because of self-aggrandizement. How do we begin to escalate, the ends of democracy in favor of the citizens rather than those persons who have been tapped into political office? Cynthia.
Yeah, I think that is why it's quite important to start building institutions, because one, for democracies to function, you need functional institutions that has in place the requisite checks and balances to check powers and also check how governments and practitioners actually behave in office. But beyond that is the fact that we can't just build institutions on one part without building citizens' consciousness on how to engage democratic institutions. Because without the people, without the followership, we cannot demand accountability. And there is no democracy without transparency and accountability. And the only set of people, group of people that have that power to demand accountability are the people who remain sovereign. And I think that is one thing we need to start learning, that citizens, we can no longer fold our arms and wait for manna to fall from heaven or wait for some international organization to come and build our system. We need to take charge of the system. We need to take charge of making demands. How many of us are aware of our rights? How many of us are aware of the services certain institutions should provide for us? And start asking critical questions. We can no longer start taking things as they are handed down to us. And the fact that we already have, I'm impressed with the fact that there are efforts to build independence of INEC, the Electoral Commission, and even the justice system to sort of like clean it up and have a system that serves the needs of the people. But the thing is, the justice system cannot provide or deliver constitutional rights if citizens don't challenge legislations or attitudes of government or orders from government as on the level of constitutionality in court. So how many of us even go to court to question a decision by a government authority? Oh, this is unconstitutional because it affects my rights. Now in some democracies like South Africa, I don't want to go out of Africa, you have people go to constitutional court to challenge legislations, to challenge decisions by government.
Yeah,
we
also have here in this country what is referred to as public interest litigation.
Yes.
And there are some persons who have done that. But your points are noted, Emmanuel Bello. Let's get your take on this.
Yeah, I was almost laughing when my big brother Gulak was talking about reactions back home when some, office holder get back, and then, I would advise that the people should actually save that for, the day of election. When you throw stones at your elective, representative and you boo them, and that doesn't actually, create any serious action other than, the optics of it. What you should do is get ready to vote the people you don't want out. And that is the biggest, challenge before the electorate. It's not about booing. It's not about petitioning. It's about how to exercise that power on election day, really, because ultimately.
But how do you? Kieran, and by the way, Cynthia, that's one point. Cynthia is saying, look, if you don't have a sufficiently educated citizenry, then you might not be able to achieve all of it. So look, I'm conscious enough to say on election day, I'm going to cast my vote and get these persons out.
Yeah, but
then you also have the citizens who are, some argue, deliberately not being educated so that they can continue to be oppressed.
And that their votes do not count. So that's what Cynthia started with, votes do not count. And people are disillusioned. They don't even want to vote anymore.
Elections are getting better. Let's not reinforce the idea that votes don't count. Votes are counting. Elections are getting better, like Senator Gani say. We must And that's one of the areas I was going to chip in, the issue of the press, the media, the role of the media and the free press. Because in the long run, a democracy is only what it is from the media perspective, what the media turn it to be. And so, yes, people are getting agitated, people are getting worried. It means that there's sufficient, anger already. It means that they are already conscientized in a way. I mean, if they can boo a governor giving a speech, if they can, people, and thank God for social media too, people are getting this, there's a build-up of anger and some form of agreement among the people that they need to change certain things. So you really don't have too much challenge with that. The people are ready. So what I'm saying is that they should now do the needful on elections day. Remove the people that they don't want to see there. They have the powers. And yes, elections are getting better. INEC is actually very, very serious. The fact that INEC just recently said that a governor, registered twice. INEC is coming out to say that. In the past, you don't hear this. The kind of INEC we have now, I have some faith in it that, look, elections are going to just get better. But I think what people need to do is actually get themselves ready. Instead of throwing stones, instead of booing, instead of just dancing the street, they get ready and on election day, because elections, by the grace of God, are going to get only better, and votes are going to count. So we must believe that, but the media must have to play a serious role in all of this. Because without a free press, you don't have a democracy.
But we have a free press, by the way, don't we? I mean, let's not.
You believe that?
Oh yeah, we have a free press. Let's not argue. I don't think that's a point for argument in terms of whether or not we have a free press. I mean, the alternative would be for us to look back and then see what happened in this country before the advent of the Fourth Republic in 1999. There have been some instances of what happened. I mean, newspapers were shut down and so on and so forth, proscribed, without just cause, what they call ad hominem basis of decree here and there. Let's go back to Senator Ganiu Solomon in Lagos.
All right. Senator Ganiu, adherence to the rule of law has been identified actually as one of the major challenges of Nigerian democracy. Why are politicians not willing to accept, or rather to adhere to the rule of law in this country?
Well, the rule of law, as I said, is a component part of constitutionalism. When you talk about democracy, you talk about constitutionalism, and you must talk about rule of law. At any point in time, the rule of law should be an important thing in any polity, and that politicians do not adhere to the rule of law. Well, the solution to that is the judicial system, which someone mentioned the other time. And this also means that we must at least try to build and strengthen our institution. We should have a good judicial system, so that to the extent that if anybody does not follow the rule of law, wants to step out of the rule of law, you can seek redress in court, or if it is criminal in nature, it can also face the music. It is important for us to make sure that we strengthen our judicial system. That will also boost the confidence of the average Nigerian, that, well, if you do anything, I can seek redress. And if if the issue also involves the general public, maybe it's the issue of double taxation, is the issue of infringing on my rights, I can seek redress, and I'm sure I'm going to get the good judgment in my case. But talking generally, I think what we need to do is to make sure that we enlighten the electorate more and more, and that is the solution that will take us higher to where we are now. If the electorate, for instance, knows what their rights are, and they also know, particularly when it comes to issue of election, they must know that it is an opportunity for them to put in whoever they want, and to also reject. When you vote, is it that to vote for a particular person so that he gets into office, or to make sure that a certain person does not get into office? Those are the two things when you want to go and vote. And we should enlighten them so much that they are aware of this. Like Bello said, throwing stone, throwing pure water may be regarded as a drama. But the main thing that will last, that will sustain the democracy, is to make sure that you are enlightened. Okay, let them do whatever they want to do. Unfortunately, we've never recorded any incident of recall where it was successfully done. So, but the only other option is the periodic election. Will you wait for them? Okay, come and give us what you've done so far. Let's see your scorecard. Let's see what you've done. Did you give us enough representation? And that is the opportunity for us to say yes or no. And if this persists, if we can embrace this, and I'm sure it will solve quite a number of our problems. But quickly, let me answer something. Let me respond to something Gulak said. Yes, truly, I didn't go back to the 8th Senate after serving in the 6th and 7th, but I opted out because I chose to go for the gubernatorial election. And part of our agreement then was, if for whatever reason you didn't get the ticket, you go back and sit down. You should not be compensated with another position. And that is the growth in the APC party. And that was an agreement, unlike what happened before, when you now have to look for something else so as to pacify that particular candidate. We agreed 2015 election. Such things will not happen. It's a way forward, because by the time you do your gubernatorial, somebody else will have concluded his own primaries. Then how do you now persuade him to give it to somebody else? I think it is a plus. And these are the kind of attitude I think we should try to imbibe in the political system. It will get us there. Yes, we have some older democracies, developed democracies like US, UK, and even India. But the way they are now, we can also get there if we are persistent, if we are consistent, and we also make sure that we do right our wrongs. Yes, we make mistakes, but how far do we want to learn with a mistake will show how far we can go in democracy.
Senator Solomon, thank you very much again. We'll come back to you just to indicate that we have reactions already coming in from our viewers. We'll take some of those tweets now and then return to the guests in the studios. Anebo Chukwuebuka tweets, remove age limit for office holders in Nigeria. If you can vote at 18 years, you can also be voted for.
All right, and from Law Alpha, the major challenge to Nigeria's democracy is the fact that the political class is taking too much money from the economy.
And Fagbo Rose Stephen tweets, if only we can address the issues of ethno-tribalism and religious sentiment, Nigeria will be the envy of all nations.
And Sani Michael Makoji, the institutional framework concerning our democratic process is very weak. Thus, that's why our leaders are failing us.
Andoaka Veshima, democracy should go beyond political cycle. If our leaders mean well, they should give us dividends.
All right, Mahmoud Haman tweets, the bane of the democratic attempts in Nigeria is the ideological bankruptcy of the political class, which allows kleptocrats and charlatans to lead.
And Sani Makalamakoji again tweets, the introduction of candidate in our democracy is a plus, but the idea of manual voting as it happened in Edo is a setback. Was there manual voting? Sorry, different between manual voting and card voting.
And card voting, yes. Ume Chimeze says we have not fared well. People lack trust in their government. The government doesn't connect to the citizens. What is then democracy?
Now, this is Kenny Wole Oshineye. Says what you call democracy in Nigeria is nothing but a big rape on the social, political, economic, and religious well-being of the Nigerian nation.
And Ume Chimeze says there is no responsiveness from the government. The masses do not care. The mass do not care to do something for their country. I didn't get that well. Maybe that the government do not care or does not care to do something for their country. What then is democracy? I think he's repeating the same thing Kenny talked about. I think what he says it means here is that the people in government do not care for this country.
All right. Now, those are some of the tweets that we are taking in the meantime. Let's return to the studios. Now, the comment has been made in the course of this conversation as well as by earlier guests when we took on this subject matter. Yes, elections are getting better in the country. Manuel Bello has re-emphasized that point. Now, Honorable Ahmed Gulak, there are concerns in some quarters that what we have seen, especially since 1999, going to the next set of elections in 2003, is that 18 years of Nigeria's democracy has been one of perpetual electioneering. Immediately one election is ending, you have all kinds of permutations and mobilization of personnel and resources and logistics for the next round of elections, rather than sitting down to govern and deliver on the ends of democracy. Why have we been stuck, as it were, with this perpetual electionary? We didn't have this in the Second Republic.
Well, I think it is due to some political developments, and it's about power game. Because somebody who has been elected for 4 years, and he has a constitutional limit of 8 years, that is the executive side, will not like the power to slip out of his hands just after serving 4 years, that's first term. And that was why I believe that the federal government led by President Goodluck Jonathan under PDP proposed a single term of 7 years. That once you are elected as a governor or as a president for 7 years, you sit down to govern and give the evidence of democracy. You don't concern yourself with your second term. I think that proposal was to some sort of address this issue of immediately you are voted in, you are planning for your second term, which will distract you from what you have been mandated to do. But be that as it may, yes, elections are improving, but no election in the whole world is perfect. And that is why some people believe, and they are venting their angers on their elected officials, because they believe maybe the 4 years, they cannot wait for these 4 years to show the world that they are angry. Take, for instance, our people in the northeast geopolitical zone. We have been ravaged by the Boko Haram insurgency. Houses have been destroyed, institutions have been destroyed, people have been killed, people are displaced. And the government of President Buhari said yes, presidential initiative to rehabilitate. The IDPs voted billions. Some foreign donors brought in money. But what do we get to hear? Some dramas, unexpected. People try to make money out of the situation our people are going through. Very sad. And you will not blame the people to vent their anger. They get to hear through media, radio, television, newspapers, that government has voted in billions. Foreign donors have donated. And instead of them seeing what's going on, they get to hear people are cutting grass with 200 million, people are doing this, people are doing that. This is as a result of bottled up frustration. So yes, you wait for 4 years to vote them out. But we are all human beings. We have our sentiments, we have our lives, and what our electorates are doing by booing their elected leaders, by throwing stones at them, is to show that yes, they are not happy.
All right, thanks a lot. Let's also get the comments of Senator Gadio Solomon on the issue of the perpetual electioneering. Senator Solomon, if you can hear me, I mean, almost 2 years ago, one of the reasons adduced for the crisis in the selection of the leadership of the Senate for the National Assembly was the fact that, look, persons thought that it was all part of the permutation for 2019. How do we get the political class to eject themselves from this perpetual electioneering cycle? One election is ending, they're preparing for the next, instead of getting down to actually sit down and work and then give the people the dividends of democracy.
I think the responsibility should be given to the political parties. The political parties should talk to their membership. They should be disciplined enough to know that immediately after an election, the next thing online should be governance, nothing else. Governance, they should have a time frame. This is when you can start politicking. This is when you can start electioneering. Anybody that falls short of that should be dismissed or sanctioned, whichever way they want to do it. But a situation where, like you said, perpetual electioneering from day one, yes, elsewhere, we will continue to compare ourselves to some other developed democracy. Yes, they go on with their own campaigning, electioneering, but it comes to the barest minimum because they seem to have a time frame when the election will start, when it will be full blown, when they will start public election when they will start their declaration. It is known up to what time. They can tell you now in the next 50 years to the exact date when general presidential elections will take place in America. It's not in the Constitution. It's a tradition. And I believe it is the political parties that should do this. We can also not push this to the electorates. It can't be the electorates all the time. It is the leadership this time around. They should know that it is their duty, and there are issues that we should not be partisan about. When it comes to certain issues, maybe security and so on and so forth, we should not be partisan. We should close our ranks, believe that, look, we owe the Nigerian people that responsibility to make sure that we provide needed leadership, needed directives, needed directions on particular issues. When it comes to maybe some other trivial issues, yes, you can play your politics, whichever way you want to do it. So we need to agree. So I take it back to political parties. They should talk to their people, sanction them where they fail to adhere to whatever laid down principle as to when you can start electioneering campaign, or whether even when you can outrightly play politics, because you can play politics with virtually everything. You can play politics with your allocation. You can play politics with who gets what and when. And this may not get us to where we want Nigeria to be in the nearest future.
Very much, Senator Ganiyu. I think the problem here is the fact that politicians do not separate politics from governance. That's a very key issue. And now let's move to the judiciary. Judiciary has been seen to have contributed to the woes of democracy through the decisions and counter decisions. Take, for instance, two courts that have jurisdiction over an issue. We keep giving divergent rulings. We have the Constitution, which is the responsibility of the courts to interpret. Now, what is the argument? Why has this issue of counter decisions taken over? In fact, especially on political issues. With apologies to Kingsley, who is a lawyer here, but many Nigerians are not really satisfied with what is happening in the judiciary. Cynthia, will you come in here?
Yeah. I think for one thing we need to understand is with the way our constitution provides for powers of the courts, there are certain courts that have concurrent jurisdiction. Now, but the thing is, the constitution also envisages a point that the fact that some courts could give conflicting decisions on a particular matter because they have concurrent jurisdiction. But they also provide for appellate powers, meaning you can always appeal a decision. Now, one of the things I feel is a bit lacking, because during elections, pre-election matters, we had the incident in Ondo elections last year, where we had different courts saying, okay, this is the candidate, before we knew it, until a day to the election, before we were certain which candidate was the candidate for a particular political party in Ondo State. And these were issues that conflicting judgments that came from court decisions. So I think, one, the judiciary, they have a key role to play in our democracy, in strengthening our democracy, because without an independent judiciary that gives sound judgment, that provides direction for action, then we cannot have a sound system. So while the Constitution provides for appellate power, so if you're not comfortable with the decision given by high courts that do have concurrent jurisdiction, you can appeal. But normally, usually what happens is lawyers found a way around making sure that decisions take longer, so you can always apply for stays of execution. You apply for appeal, and most time appeals take longer time. And that is why we've seen a whole lot of cases of off-cycle elections. So you see a process that for every year you almost have an off-cycle elections going on, because most times by the time decisions are given by the court, you have someone that probably exercised power and has been in office for a period of time, and then you need to do a new swearing in and all that. So the judiciary, they need to understand the role they play in providing that political stability, one, the role they play in interpreting our laws in such a way that we have a sense of guidance on what we are going to do, and that also to ensure that even for the lawyers themselves, the Nigerian Bar Association, they have a key role to play in our democracy, because they are supposedly the body of knowledge, the learned members of the society. I'm a lawyer by training, but it gets to a point where you start asking questions, because their lawyers are going to court to bring in injunctions, to bring in matters, to start up cases in court. But the thing is, at what point do we realize that we need some sort of sanity in our system? Because if the judiciary cannot firmly take decisions, that will provide guidance, we would keep having this level of shenanigans that we have existing, especially when it comes to elections, when it comes to political party decisions, especially pre-election matters. So I feel, for one, when it comes to that particular system, we need to have a sense of direction. And if it's a matter of appeal, we need to know that when decisions are given concurrent by courts that have concurrent powers, that those decisions, we have a right to appeal. But there should be some sense of guidance even amongst the courts themselves, so that you don't have, we have a party today, one party, this is the party leader the court identifies, tomorrow the next leader is identified by the party. So we are not even sure who is a particular party leader. So it gives us, so even for citizens, we are not certain, okay, which court decision are we going with? And that is a big question mark for our judicial system. The judiciary, they have a key role to play in strengthening our democracy.
All right, Cynthia, thank you very much. Very important points that you have raised. But oftentimes, you know, there's a conflation of the question of the judiciary and then others who are also involved in the administration of justice. You have the ministers who are in the temple of justice, including lawyers. The cases that you hear about, you know, being filed in different courts or in similar courts with coordinate jurisdiction are cases filed by persons who are ministers in the temple of justice, namely lawyers. But I mean, we're not discussing the judiciary essentially now, but if you were to look at from 1999 to date, I mean, the opinion would be that we have seen a progressive improvement in the judicial operation of the judiciary. First, in terms of their infrastructure, for instance, even in terms of the institution of the courts, you have seen a number of divisions that have been created. For instance, the Court of Appeal, you have a number of divisions, you have a number of appointments now to the Supreme Court, together, of course, with the creation of the National Industrial Court, which leads to greater specialization in all of that. But the performance, of course, these are issues that other guests, will take on, at some other point. Now, Emmanuel Bello, the issue still on the table has to do with perpetual cycle of elections. What are your thoughts?
Well, I want to say that it is not just a perpetual cycle of, elected officials are not just stuck in a perpetual cycle of election. They're also stuck in the perpetual cycle of, these cases that we're talking about. You have a governor, for instance, of a state who has been in court for the last 2 years. This matter just got through there, and specifically Taraba State Governor.
2 years is short.
Yes. So, no, but what I'm saying is that you get stuck there. And that's part of the problem of democracy, some of the challenges, and with the judiciary. You have to find a way of dealing with these cases. I don't know what magic can be done, but dealing with these cases, pre-elections or post-election, whatever they are, deal with these cases so that the elected person can actually have all the time. And because they actually hold on to that, maybe rightly, to say that this is why we are not performing, because yes, we're distracted by court case. It goes all the way to the Supreme Court. Some governors are still in court, 2 years down the line. So these are part of the problem. And whether you like it or not, I mean, you can say, oh, it's just an excuse for not performing. But you can understand that someone is in court. He's not even sure whether tomorrow he's going to wake up and some court is going to declare that he's no longer the governor of the state or he's no longer in that position. And so they're in court, they're battling with this, and at the same time, they have to actually provide dividends of democracy. So it's not just an electoral, and I want to actually go away from that. The truth of the matter is that it's a good thing that our people are conscious of the next election. It's not actually a bad thing, Kingsley, that elected officials are actually thinking of the next election. And it's a good thing that even the electorate keep reminding them that there's going to be the next election. In fact, from day one, it's a good thing that from day one, the electorate continue to remind them that, look, an election is coming.
Yeah, but it's abandonment of your primary assignment now to begin to focus on the next election.
No, on the flip side, contrary to that, on the flip side, it's actually an energizer. It actually, pushes them to want to do more, because the biggest campaign you can do as an elected official is actually, to reel out and that's why you see many of the governors, especially through their spokesperson, saying, we've done this, we've done that, we've done that. People are getting more conscious.
Yeah, that's what they say, the earmark, and then the electorate are looking for what they have earmarked.
Exactly.
Well, let's return to Senator Ghanaian Solomon. Senator Ghanaian Solomon, in our Lagos Network studios, that's an issue that was raised on the first part of this conversation on challenges of Nigeria's democracy. And Lagos has an experience, somewhat not on all fours, in this matter. A guest on the program suggested that, look, we've had a major problem with the local government system in the Fourth Republic. Over the past 18 years, local governments have not been local governments properly so-called. And its suggestion is to the effect that to the extent that you have any state that does not abide by the provisions, express provisions of Section 7 of the 1999 Constitution, being that you have a democratically elected rather than so-called caretaker committees appointed by governors, the allocation to such local government should be withheld by the federal government. I'm asking this question because you remember President Obasanjo withheld the allocations to Lagos State because Lagos State created what now became known as local government or local council development areas. But this now strictly with regard to the enforcement or the observance of Section 7 of the 1999 Constitution. If there is no democratically elected government, no allocation to such a state. What is your comment on this?
I think it was a settled case when the Supreme Court said the federal government had no such power to withhold any money for maybe states, local government, and that puts that particular exercise to rest, saying that the action of the federal government then was illegal. However, the Section 7 expressly says that the local government must be democratically ruled, and but there's a section that also contradicts that, and the section that puts the power to govern, the power to state the system of government, the administration, and what have you, of local government in the hands of the states. And that brings a kind of a contradiction. Fortunately, I was a local government chairman when these things happened. And we felt we should be there for 4 years. But they now went to court, and the court said, okay, it's the state that is going to direct the affair as stated in the Constitution, that's going to address the affairs of the local government. And they felt, okay, this is what we want to do. So, and I've also participated in the constitutional review exercise in the Senate and jointly in the National Assembly. It was part of our recommendations that we should look at local government governance, and we should make sure that at least those conflicting sections are removed and brought together where necessary, so that we will have a uniform session that will give a level of autonomy, not a free autonomy, but a level of autonomy to the local government, so that they can govern without unnecessary in quote interference from the state. Until we have that, I think there's very, very little we can do about this particular issue. The Constitution says that, but the Constitution at the same time gives the state government, the state level of government, the executive and the legislative arm of the state, the power to direct the affairs of the local government. And that is why we have the situation we have now.
Right, Senator Ganiu, thank you very much for your contribution this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. There may be cause to bring you back on this program some other time on other issues we were unable to treat this morning on democracy in Nigeria in 18 years. And also, time will not allow us to continue this conversation. Therefore, I'd like to also thank Ahmed Golak, former special advisor to the President on Political Affairs. Good to have had you on this show this morning, sir.
It's my pleasure.
All right, and also Mr. Emmanuel Bello, former Commissioner for Information, Taraba State. Thank you for your contribution.
It's a pleasure.
And of course, Cynthia, we would have loved to ask one question, but time is not our friend. I want to appreciate your contribution this morning on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. All right, now, this is Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. We'll take a short break now, and when we return, we'll go to another issue slated for this morning's conversation.
Admission forms for the 2017-2018 academic session of NTA Television College JAWS into its diploma programs are now on sale. The diploma programs are in film and TV production, broadcast journalism, and TV engineering technology. Applicants are required to have at least 5 credits, including English language and mathematics at SSC, NECO, or GCO levels in not more than 1 sitting. Application forms can be obtained from the TV College Refi JAWS or at any NTA zonal centers nationwide on payment of a non-refundable fee of 7,500 naira in bank draft in favor of NTA Television College. Completed application forms should be returned to the office of the academic secretary, NTA Television College, or the center of purchase on or before 28th of July 2017. For further inquiries, please call 0806 980 9807 or 0703 660 7155. NTA Television College, training you to be the best you can be.
TV Guide magazine is out with fabulous Fab Funke Akindele Bello, aka Jennifer, adorning the cover. She opens a secret not known even to her family. Find out the secret. NTA turns 40 this year. The challenges, the emerging trends in broadcasting, and the way forward. Weekend Dealer 2. Meet the team behind the biggest deal on NTA. Is food still the way to a man's heart? If not, what else? This edition is hot and juicy. Meet your star faces on screen. Entertainment, fashion, young minds, social media, and great personality.
This is idiosyncratic and heterodox.
Yes, Professor John Bull is on the radar. Find out what makes this program the rave of the moment on NTA Network, and for the prof,
over and out.
TV Guide. Ask your vendors or book your copy at every NTA station nationwide. TV Guide, still your indispensable companion.
Now, as we move to the next segment of this program, fulfillment of its promise to make laws that will provide favorable environment to improve businesses in Nigeria, the Senate has passed the long-awaited Petroleum Industry Governance Bill. The bill is expected to change the fortunes of the oil and gas sector in the country. National Assembly correspondent Waziri Zayan reports that the bill was passed after a clause-by-clause consideration with few amendments made at Thursday's plenary.
The bill, which seeks total reformation of the oil and gas sector, was formulated to create efficient and effective governing institutions with clear and separate roles for the petroleum industry. Presenting the report on the bill produced by the Senate Joint Committee on Gas, Petroleum Downstream and Petroleum Upstream, Senator Donald Alasha Adura, representing Ondo Central, noted that the objective of the bill also include establishing a framework for the creation of commercially oriented and profit-driven entities.
Promote transparency and accountability in the administration of the petroleum resources of Nigeria.
Divergent views were expressed by the senators on the bill.
We want to create a one-stop regulatory commission where everything about petroleum industry can be attended to.
If we leave this matter in the hands of the oil industry, we may end up with a situation where we will spend our time fighting over issues that we should not be concerned with at this point in our development.
It is so important, not only for the petroleum industry, but for the entire economy of this country.
The Ministry of Environment's own responsibility is to supervise the body that should ensure that certain things don't happen.
The minister is responsible for the policy, while the board is responsible for implementation of the policy.
At the Committee of the Whole, the PIB was scrutinized clause by clause with few amendments made.
I hope with this bill, the oil and gas industry will begin to see the new kind of investment that is necessary. We'll plug all the loopholes, be able to reduce the areas of corruption, inefficiency. People will be able to benefit better in the petroleum sector, and that Nigerians will be better for it.
The bill is expected to be sent to the House of Representatives for concurrence and then signed by the presidency.
All right, joining us straight away to discuss issues pertaining to the passage of the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill. We have here with us face on Good Morning Nigeria. It's quite familiar. Public Affairs Analyst, Mr. Jide Ojo. Jide, I'd delight to have you join us on the program.
Thanks for having me. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right. What are your thoughts on the passage of this long-delayed bill by one chamber of the bicameral legislature that we have in the country?
I think it's commendable, it's laudable, it's something that is a cheering news. And I think it's targeted at the halfway mark of this administration that, okay, it's part of what they can take on as part of the achievements of the administration, because where our previous administration has failed, this one seems to be succeeding. It has not succeeded yet. Remember, this is a bill that was introduced under the Yar'Adua administration in 2009. It was embroiled in all manner of controversies. At some point in 2012, before the reintroduction in 2012 under the administration of Mrs. Dezane Alison Madueke as the Petroleum Minister. On July 18, 2012, she addressed a press conference where she said, look, all these issues, this bill is so important to the reform of the petroleum sector. There are 16 extant legislations governing the oil and gas sector, which some of them dated back to 1950s. More than 50 years ago, they are outdated, they are antediluvians. This is part of what this petroleum industry is supposed to bring those legislation into contemporary times, make the oil and gas sector transparent, accountable, bring in inflows, foreign direct investment. As of 2012, statistics shows that Nigeria was losing, or let me be use more appropriate word. There were foreign direct investment of about $40 billion that were being held back by investors because they are not sure what governance structure will be coming on stream. At some point in time, there were several of these PIB in circulation as of 2012. Then there was this controversy of some senators being taken to Ghana by an oil company, conflict of interest, and all of that. But long story short, this administration reintroduced the bill in 2015. 2 years down the line, it is being passed by the Senate. Like I said earlier on, it's something that is churning. I only do hope that the entire processes will be consummated by making sure that this bill is quickly passed on to House of Reps for concurrence and let them have conference committee if need be, then transmit it to the president or acting president, as the case may be, for his signature, so that we can start taking the benefit of this foreign direct investment into oil and gas sector, which has been held back over the years.
Mr. Joe, actually, you have just come to the area I wanted you to spotlight. Now, what is in this bill for Nigerians to take home? For instance, what is the benefit of this bill? Because some senators kicked against it, and the House of Reps is yet to pass this bill. So, but what is there? Everybody said is a laudable thing to pass such a bill. So, what is there for Nigeria?
There are actually, as at the 2012 one that I wrote about and I knew more about, there were 11 objectives in that one reintroduced by Mrs. Dezane Alison Madueke in 2012. And some of them were highlighted by the senators yesterday. It's going to bring foreign direct investment into the oil and gas sector. It's going to bring accountability and transparency. It's going to cut waste. It's going to ensure that host communities also get benefit, in terms of, I really don't know about, part of the controversy in previous times was because of the 10% host community benefits that was supposed to accrue to those oil companies, that wherever you are exploring oil, those communities should get 10%. And I recall that the northern senators in 2012 kicked against that because they felt, one, Niger Delta is getting 13%. It has an amnesty program. it has Niger Delta Development Commission, it has Ministry of Niger Delta, and they felt that that was enough. Why are you giving those communities another 10%? But I hope that that is part of what the Senate has passed, because that is part of what can calm frayed nerves in Niger Delta. You know, you can't take only PIB in isolation of other things that the government is doing to ensure that there's all this issue of restiveness in Niger Delta are done away with. One is the increase in the budget for amnesty, the issue of local content, modular refineries, that the acting president has promised that instead of all this illegal refinery that was taken, they are going to do a kind of modular refineries to encourage these people. So all this taken together, including issue of local content into what is being done. And you know, part of what this bill that has been passed, there is going to be unbundling of NNPC. One, there will be, it's meant to make NNPC more profit-driven and more business-like, make it leaner. There is going to be a national oil company that will be established. Then Petroleum Equalization Commission, the PPPRA, Petroleum Pricing Product Regulatory Commission, as well as the Department of Petroleum Resources are going to be merged. You know, then there will be an asset management company, National Petroleum Asset Management Commission, that will be set in place. So all of this is to reform the governance structure in the oil and gas sector, making sure that there is adequate protection, health and security is also part of the bargain, that will ensure that the issue of Ogoni, oil spillage and all of that is done away with. That is why they are saying part of the unbundling will ensure that the Ministry of Environment and that new national oil company work together to ensure safety and health of people in the Niger Delta where oil is being exploited. Then there will be national gas company that will ensure that the issue of gas shortage and all of that is done away with. So there are quite immense benefits. Like I said, what we have in the public domain are snippets of what should be the benefit until when one reads the entire bill as passed, then one can then be able to come up with greater and better benefits.
What is very crucial is what you just indicated now, the details of the provisions in the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill. Exactly. On the face of it, as you have indicated, there are all kinds of benefits pertaining to that. But one of the challenges that the oil industry always faced was the absence of a properly funded, properly organized and enabled industry regulator. You had a DPR that was also embedded in NNPC. That's one leg of it. So where are you going to have the industry regulator regulating both the national oil company as well as the IOCs? That's another issue. The other crucial point that we can also touch on, and I would like you to also deal with this. There were some observers, who were worried when the Minister of State for Petroleum was carrying on the various changes and reforms, limited reforms that has been undertaken in the NNPC to make it more business-oriented, make it more efficient. Now you are having this, assuming by some miracle before year end, the PIGB becomes an act. What then happens to those earlier reforms? Everything will be shattered all over again?
Well, again, you see, that's typical of Nigeria, putting the cart before the horse. I think Dr. Ibe Kachuku was just in a hurry to make sure that his own tenure as Petroleum, Minister of Petroleum Resources and GMD of NNPC, that rather than waiting endlessly for this petroleum industry governance bill, it needs to take some proactive action. It's quite in order. We have seen some benefit of that proactiveness, and we cannot condemn him for that. But I think we need a regulatory legislation, such as this petroleum industry governance bill, because what Dr. Kachuku has done was at the policy level. Right. Now, whatever you do at policy level can be discontinued by an incoming administration with a stroke of pen. But when you have it as a legislation, it will take you a more difficult procedure to jettison that. And that is what I think we are trying to institutionalize this reform this new governance regime in the oil and gas sector, so much so that, do you know that, let me flag something, we have lost so much. And this is, we are a latecomer now. The discovery of oil in many West African countries, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Ghana, in southern Central Africa, southern Africa, like Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, has robbed off of so many inflows that will have come. So many investors have gone to those climes to invest their money. But better late than never. With this PIB, if we are lucky enough, and I think we should push for all of these procedures and bureaucratic processes to be concluded before the year ends, let us have this regime in place, sign into law, and then we can start deriving the benefits. Of course, the greater challenge will be in the implementation at the end of the day, but it's good that we have it, and it's something that should be celebrated.
All right, thank you very much. You said it all. The entire thing borders on implementation. If well implemented, well, Nigeria will be better for it. At this point, we'd like to thank you one more time for being part of this presentation.
It's a
thank
pleasure.
you, Mr. Jide Ojo is a public affairs analyst. You are still on Good Morning Nigeria. Kingsley?
All right, now we move on to sports. And Nigeria did digress to know their AfroBasket 2017 opponents tomorrow. In addition, the more Super Eagles players are in training camp ahead of tomorrow's friendly against Corsica. Let's go over to our sports desk now for details of this and more.